delighted today. We're delighted today to have Attila here, to best known, of course, for his succulents. But I know over the years he's become more and more interested in Australian succulents, and it's just a little step further to get into cycads, isn't it, Attila? So with that, it says an introduction, so we will let you introduce them to us.
Okay. Uh, now, I'm trying to drop a side screen here. Sorry. Okay. Now, everyone's got that on the screen. Australian cycad, an
Yes.
introduction.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, for those who don't know me, I'll be showing some of the best images of some of the best species that Australia has to offer. And it will get exciting, but more so towards the end. So we've got to warm up slowly. Lots of images. Some I will flick through very, very quickly. So fasten your seatbelts for the cycad ride of your life. Now, in an introduction, there's a few things I've got to touch on. One of them is we have a general perception and understanding that cycads were around in the days of dinosaurs, so they're prehistoric, been around for hundreds of millions of years. Also, too, that possibly cycads were a food source for dinosaurs, so that's fairly well understood. Also, too, this is considered an important distribution map showing where cycads are now found, once more widespread across all of the world. Now they've been reduced to these locations marked in green. And of course, you can see Australia there to the right. And now a few exotic species for comparison. These are things that you might often find in a nursery or see them in a garden. So Zamia species, they're again the same species. Zamia showing the reproductive features. Zamia again. The African genus Encephalatus. This is just one, a very spiny one. I particularly like this species because it grows well in amongst cacti and succulents. But there are many cycads that we recognize. This one, Cycas revoluta, common, very common, worldwide. It is perhaps the most world-renowned cycad species, suitable in many climates, a related species, Cycas pectinata. So just some exotic species, just to tease you. Now, Australian species, what do we know about them and how many are we aware of? Before we go down that road, I just want to touch again, and with any introduction, you need to know who I am and what I'm all about. I specialize in succulent plants, spiny plants. These are both native species of, they're Australian native succulent plants, but they're xerophytes, they're drought tolerant, they're dry climate plants. And a lot of people are gaining interest in this area or field where dry climate plants that require less water, becoming more suitable for gardens, perhaps not the spinier things like this, but this is what I'm typically found doing. I'm in arid regions, driving around, exploring, looking for plants. And you can see on the side of my car, this is the sign we have, which is quite prominent, wattle trees and desert flora research. So that's what I do. I do research in desert regions. Here's my wife, Michelle, main photographer. She's my backup. She does a lot of important things behind the scenes that people don't get to see or hear about, but she is very, very important. And this is our typical habitat that we'd find ourselves exploring. And when you find something that's new or different, this is a real special occasion, but it's not about this plant, but this is kind of like what we could be found doing on any given day, walking endlessly, seemingly hostile environments. That this is a stone pavement and there's nothing alive here at all. But after rain, things do germinate here and there occasionally. And it's surprising what you might find in these most arid of zones under and after rain. But in typical arid habitats, there are often also mountain ranges where microclimates can exist. Now, there are xerophytes, which are drought-tolerant plants, which are both succulent and spiny in and near these mountain ranges. Now, in central Australia, in the most arid regions of the continent, we have the McDonald Mountain Range, and this is what you can find there. So this is typical of a central Australian cycad, and hidden in the canyons and valleys and areas that are more fertile and where water can be accessed in between rock crevices, these plants exist. Now, with any introduction to Australian cycads, I now have to touch on the fact that there are approximately 75 species, and they belong in 3 families. You see them there listed, and there are 4 genera. So this basically covers Australian cycads. Looking at them in more detail, I then have to go back to this international map that experts have put together showing the distribution range. Now, if you look at Australia, you'll notice that the Central Australian one from the McDonnell Ranges near Alice Springs, there's no green mark for that central species, which is a prominent, important, significant species. Why is it not on the map? Well, that's a good question. We'll touch on that later. So there's Australia, and that's where that species that you saw earlier comes from, right there. And yet it's not on the map. Why not? Now, with an introduction again, what does a cycad look like? What describes a cycad? Well, it looks like a palm. It can look like a fern. And the leaves are often very leathery. But the most distinguishing feature of any cycad in the world is its reproduction, its reproductive features, reproductive parts, because they identify a cycad from all other plants. Now, a closer look at reproduction, flowers. Most plants that we have in our gardens have flowers. They are called angiosperms. And what's interesting about cycads is this is a cycad, an Australian species, and it's in full reproductive mode. Now, where are the petals, the sepals? Where is the ovaries, the pistils, the anthers? Where are the reproductive parts that we're familiar with? Well, there are none. Why? Because this is not an angiosperm. This is not a flowering plant. This predates all flowering plants. It's called a gymnosperm. And it's more closely, this cycads, all cycads are more closely related to pine trees and pine cones than they are any other plant. And it's kind of interesting because what do you recognize here? Are these seeds? Are these fruit? What parts are we looking at here? Well, I need to again go back to the angiosperm, a flower, typical flower. And in the middle, in the central area here, you can see the ovaries. The ovaries have the seeds within the ovary. The seeds develop within the ovary. But with a cycad, just like pine trees and pine cones, the seeds are produced in the cone and around the cone, and the seeds are rather exposed. Now, these are typical pine cones we're looking at, and this is a cycad cone. So you can see superficial similarities. There is a cone-like similarity there. Again, a pine cone. Now, cycads are dioecious in that male plants and female plants are quite distinct. This is a male plant. There's a female here. This is a male here. And what separates, what identifying markers are there between a male and a female? Because that's very, very important to understand. But again, when you look at a pine cone and you see the segments separate, you can see the segments of the cycad cone also separating. So that separation and exposing pollen is very, very important. So pine cones do it, cycads do it exactly the same way. Now, a little closer look. Now, I'm going to be looking at the features of the reproduction in a slow mode. When I get to interesting and beautiful species, I'll accelerate to a fast mode. So bear with me, it won't be too long. Close examination of a male cone, and you can see funny dots, these white dots. Now, there they are. For those who have got a good screen, you'll see them close up. The arrow points to it. These white dots, these are pollen sacs. Pollen sacs. And there's the pollen being released. My fingers, left side. So you can actually see there's a white pollen there and it's falling at the bottom to my hand there. So the pollen's being released from the male plant. That's a male plant. That's a female plant. Now the cone does not appear really cone-like, but it's a loose cone. And that's the female cycad of the same species we looked at in the previous slide. And that's a female. And what first thing you notice is the seeds are not inside an ovary or inside a flower. They are outside and attached to the side of these segments. Now, as the cone develops, it opens up. So it's no longer cone-like in its structure or shape. But just like a pine cone opens up, you notice each segment spreads widely. Well, these two spread widely, same, and left side and right side, you can see how it's closed, a bit like a loose cone, and then it spreads widely. So that's a female plant. The female plants here, obviously with the seeds, are female. Now, that's the male plant. That's a female. Now, most of the images we've seen so far just are really covering just Cycas armstrongi. I'm using it as an example of an Australian cycad because it's got some distinct but important features. The petiole of the leaves covered in spines, the central area is covered in spines. I like spiny plants like cacti and succulents. I like spiny things. So I find this sort of plant fascinating, and it's interesting because whenever I go looking for cacti and succulents in Australia in the outback, uh, I often encounter cycads, and I find cycads have got a lot in common with cacti. Look how spiny that is. That's so spiny. If you fell on that, oh God. Now, what are those features we're looking at? Are these leaves? If it's not the reproductive features, what are we looking at here? Well, there's the reproductive, that's a male. What's below those white things, those white spiky things? Well, they're called caterpillars, and they're a type of modified leaf that's highly reduced, they're scale-like, they're spiny on the end. And when each of these caterpillars are shed, you get the same leaf imprint that a leaf would have. So the green leaf on the right side, this here, when it sheds, you get this red imprint. And when these scales are shed, you get this leaf imprint because these white things are in fact highly reduced leaves. Now, even the cone itself is made up of highly reduced leaves. Really strange. There's a caterpillar, top part, each portion of the upper part is called a microsporophyll. This is still a male plant. This is a female of the same species. And what we're looking at there, the top part, each segment is called a megasporophyll. Would you believe every part of the plant you're looking at here happens to be a leaf? So down here, these black sharp pointed things, these are leaves, highly reduced. These things are highly reduced leaves, modified leaves. And these are highly reduced and modified leaves. Who would have thought? So when you look at this and you see it spreading, the cone spreading widely, let's have a closer look at a megasporophyll. That's a megasporophyll. That's its name. There it is. You know, what a mouthful. But if you notice that top part where it's green, if you rub the brown orange fur off the intermentum, you get a green underneath. That's the color of a leaf. And these elite, oh, wow, what a beautiful species. But let's not focus on the beautiful blue, but rather the megasporophyll. Go closer. You can see these orange, furry, velvety things have got, oh, look, I can imagine that being leaf-like with all the little pinnae, but it's so reduced, it doesn't appear leaf-like, but in fact, it is a leaf. And the seeds are produced on the sides of leaves. A quick touch on stem and trunk before we get into some of the best pictures of the best plants, so hold your breath. Cycad stems are composed of leaf stubs that help support the cortex as a fat trunk, but it's not really wood like in a tree. And the impressions you see there, those patterns, are in fact the remains of old leaves, and they help become part of the structure supporting the plants. True leaves, let's look at some. That's one species and another and another. So, oh, wow, colour. Oh. Now, of the 75 Australian species within 3 families and 4 genera, let's start. Let's start with Strangeraceae. Why? Bowenia. Why? Because it's the simplest and quickest to go through before we get into some of the more complex ones. This is Bowenia spectabilis. It is a spectacle. The leaf is shiny, plastic-like. It often only grows one leaf. The plant only grows one leaf, a single leaf. May have 2 or 3, but rarely. It's usually just a single leaf. And, it's a beautiful species. There's one in a pot, and that's the trunk, which is often beneath the ground. This is in cultivation, so it's above the ground, but it's a cortex. And it only ever grows 1 to a few leaves per year. And there it is, semi-submerged, 2 leaves in this case. And there's that's a male plant. Yes, it is. Oh, obviously, there's the pollen sacs. That's a male. Left side, male plants. Right side, female plants. You can see the female reproductive features just showing there now. Now, you might not be aware, some of you, I'm a dinosaur. In my youth, when I was a youngster, when I walked past a butcher's shop window, besides all the meat displayed in the window, the only greenery would be stems of this plant. This is one of the most poisonous plants in the world, and yet these leaves, because they don't perish, they'll last without water, they were sat on and in and amongst the meat in a butcher shop window. This is quite famous. This was like all through my childhood. Long forgotten history. Let's move on from Bowenia. Let's now go to the genus Cycas. Well, we've already touched on from the family Cycadaceae. After Bowenia, this is a cycas, my favourite one. Calcicola or silver cycad. The leaves are so
Mm.
superb and so silvery and so alluring. And oh my goodness, what a beautiful male. Oh, yes, it is. And that's a female. Female. These don't show yet but often you can actually tell from some distance whether they're a male or a female. So it's quite interesting. Now, Cycas calcicola up the top is called the silver cycad. The green one in the foreground is the fire fern, Zamia palm, and it loves fire. After a good burning, by the way, this is one of the most adapted plants to fire there is because after a fire, all the eucalypts have suffered, all the trees, all the palms, everything is slow to recover if they recover. But a cycad bounces back superbly. You look how it's come back so quickly after a fire. Ah, even here where you might see damage, there's a lot to be said in this image, but going closer, this is the old trunk of a eucalypt tree and it's perished. The cycads or the fires killed the eucalypt, but this cycad's coming back, this one's coming back, and this one, after it sheds its
Mm.
leaves, will also come back. So yes, it's adapted well to fire. It's a beautiful species, and it's not a large growing species. You can keep it modest and small in a pot, so beautiful. Now, when I visit in particular, that habitat for that species, I'm often confronted with dilemmas that are rather peculiar because I use my laptop at night and in the afternoon, and I do all my study and research and documentation. And when I'm on the laptop, I find I get a lot of computer bug problems. I have more computer bug problems in this particular habitat than anywhere else. And I don't know why. I don't know if any of you can help me with this problem, but for some reason, I can't seem to understand. I don't know if any of you have got any ideas or suggestions what to do about it, but and my face looks exactly the same. My eyes, my ears, all under my clothes. Oh my God. Anyway, that's Cycas Hello, Michelle. Oh, it's blue. It's another species, Cycas canzia. Oh, so blue, so beautiful. Oh, that's a male. Oh, that's a female. You can even tell from a distance. Once you get that's obviously a female. Oh, beautiful. Look, they look like eggs, bird eggs. And there you've got a tiny megaspirophyle, and you look closely, I can actually see the spinescent. There are spines on all the petioles of the leaves of the plant. But these two, they've got the spiny edges and the spiny apex. I can see a leaf-like structure. I can see it being a leaf. In a seed that hasn't been fertilized. So I guess, such a beautiful blue in its habitat against the green foliage of other trees. It's one of the world's most sought after cycads. It's so prized by collectors and growers. This is an interesting form of the species. Oh, such a beautiful blue. Another one, another cycas, Yorkiana. Beautiful, beautiful species. It's a female. Now, let's leave cycas. Let's go on because I won't have time to cover them all. Lepidosomia. Oh, it's a great plant for gardens. It has no spiny parts, no spiny leaves, petioles, or reproductive features. So it's perhaps the softest of all the cycads. The leaves are very plastic-like and very shiny. They also, beautiful. No spinescent features whatsoever on the plant. Beautiful. Long petioles, very large inflorescence. Oh, that's a male. That's a female. That's a female. Oh my God, that's huge. 40 kilos, the reproductive structure of a female lepidosomia. Look at that. Oh God, two seeds. Now let's move on from lepidosomia. Macrosomia, the last one. Macrosomia, a common one. Macrosomia communis. Beautiful, shiny seeds and succus testa, they call that, with the seeds exposed here and the flesh here to the side. Oh, a male plant. A female plant. A female plant. There are lots of indicators as to whether it's a male or a female plant, but you're getting some of them. You're getting the idea now. Habitat typically deep forest, not open forest, deep forest, treed. Eucalyptus macrocarpa is one of the most dominant plants that associates with this particular species. Yeah, it can be found by the millions in places. the Central Australian species, Macrozamium macdonaldii, found in many parts of the Central Australian area where it's rocky, stony, mountainous, and where moisture and a little bit of shade in the canyons and lower reaches of the mountain range. There are palms here. This is called Palm Valley. Everyone knows about the palms in Palm Valley. But right on the hill behind the palms, that's where you can find my favourite plant. Beautiful blue cycad. Oh, even in cultivation, it's so easy to grow too. It's frost hardy, very frost hardy. So even though it's from Central Australia, it's very tolerant of cold and wet. Oh, the biggest. Not necessarily the tallest, but this is the biggest by far. Macrozamia morii. It's a beautiful species. Oh, two females. Can you see both of them? Oh, that's Michelle's hand, by the way. Michelle and the cycad, both females. Oh, that's a male. Michelle's hand holding part there to the left side. Now, the male produces lots of inflorescences by comparison with the female, which often produces one to a few. So it's quite different. Now, all of these male features, the male reproductive parts, rise for a short period, but they don't stay erect for long at all before they become limp. Nothing you can do can get them up again. So you can actually, interesting, the male organ with a female's hand, nothing. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'll have to move on. I was going to make a joke. Cycad, this is the habitat of Macrozamia morii, and these are really it's a massive species, and it does really well in cultivation too. Oh, an acaulescent species. It doesn't develop a trunk above the ground. In fact, it lives for the most part underground. It's a small dwarf species. That's a mature plant, and the measure there of 15 centimeters. It's a dwarf species. It has a big cortex beneath the ground, and even the apex of the cortex is beneath the ground, and only the leaves extend, and only several leaves per plant at all. The plant could live with only 3 leaves and 4 leaves, maximum 8 to 10, I think. But you can see there are 3 leaves coming up for this particular year. And you can see there's no stem, trunk or anything, just out of the ground. And there the leaves, after a while, you can obviously see the trunk is way below the ground surface, the surface area. Isn't that amazing? And even the inflorescence, sorry, not the inflorescence, this is a male, and they just come straight out of the ground. A female, on a bit of a pedestal there, so it's a little bit higher, raised above. A fully mature plant with only a few habitat. Ooh, what's its name? It's got an interesting name. This is Macrozamia polymorpha, and polymorpha is a species that's polymorphic in that it's got lots of different morphological characters that are difficult to interpret. Some plants have single leaflets. Some plants are bipinnate. Some plants are pinnate. Some plants have. Now, I shouldn't get into too much botany there, but on the horizon, that's where that species, Macrozamia polymorpha, lives. There are lowland, low-lying hills across on the plain, but up in this higher mountainous region of New South Wales, you can find a species, instead of having there's a typical cycad leaf, and these are what's called pinnae. Each single leaflet is called a pinnae. That's typical of cycads. But up in the mountains here, there's a species found that's not singular, but it forks and branches multiple times. So each pinnae is branched, and you can have like this. This is a single leaflet of the cycad, and what it looks like, it's quite bushy. It's a beautiful species. Oh, so beautiful. It looks like a rib cage or a skeletal feature. Oh, Macrozamia stenomera. My goodness. Now, I do not have time to show you all the other very interesting and attractive Australian cycads, but I can say for certain that I have only shared a sampling. Oh, now, cultivation. Oh, the story changes a little bit. This is in America. It's one of the biggest and best botanical gardens you'll find anywhere in the world, and this is a huge place. This is just a portion, small sampling of the gardens, and the gardens are massive, historic gardens, the estate, the mansion in the background, the mansion. God, I go there regularly because of the cacti and succulents. This is one of the roadways, and there are hundreds of thousands of cacti and succulents. It's just one of the best in the world. It's incredibly impressive. Now, I've taken this snap from their website, the Huntington. So this is blurry to you on the screen. It's I've got to explain. I've just cut and pasted this for a reason. And some more text as well, I've cut and pasted. But the Huntington is home to one of the largest and most diverse collections of living plants in the world. Today, it covers 207 acres, 130 of which are open to visitors. The botanical living collections comprise approximately 28,000 living taxa, all different plants. Of several core collections is our collection of cycads. Ooh. Henry Huntington established the estate in 1909. He then spent nearly 5,000, that's more than $100,000 in today's terms. It's a lot of money on rare and choice cycads to plant near his mansion. Now, when you look at one of the verandas on his mansion, one of the verandas, they look out and upon cycads, left, right, and centre. And there's a Japanese garden he has, and it's full of cycads everywhere. There are cycads, and through other buildings elsewhere, you walk through a corridor, through here, in the centre, right through, and when you get to the other side, you get to one of the glass houses, cycads everywhere. Entranceway, cycads. Inside, there's cycads. There are cycads everywhere. But apart from the incredible collection of cycads the Huntington has, it so happens now, I'll introduce Lauren Whitelock. This is from cut and paste from the Huntington website. Now, world-renowned cycad expert Lauren Whitelock has 2 cycad species named after him. His 374-page tome, The Cycads, is considered the definitive guide to the plants. This is his book, highly prized book. This happens to be Lauren and his wife, Eva Whitelock. Now, they have also in California, they had what's called the Cycad Gardens of Los Angeles. It's one of this is again cut and paste from the Huntington, these are not my words. Whitelock's lush garden was one of the best private collections of cycads in the world. It's like a fantasy. It's so unimaginably beautiful, but Lauren has since passed away. He donated his estate, including his collection of some 1,500 cycads, to the Huntington. Now the Huntington has the absolute best collection of cycads you'll see anywhere. There are cycads everywhere you look. And this image, thank you, Kathy Musial, Senior Management of the Huntington, and her support at helping put this presentation together. Several of the images you've just seen have come from her. But now all my images from here on. Huntington also has an extensive primary core garden of Australian plants. Australian plants, it's an extensive Australian garden they have. In it, there are several cycads that are beautiful. They're all native, but only several. Why so few? Why, if we have so many? At least we have 75 species. This is Australian cycads in an Australian garden. Australian cycads, again, obviously you'll recognise perhaps some of these in their locations, but these are gardens that have Australian natives. Oh, turquoise, that's a colour, it doesn't look real. Cycas canalis. Oh my God, these are in cultivation. Why has the Huntington so few? Now, change of topic a little bit. I'm now in my 60s, late 60s. I'm now a dinosaur, much like cycads in a way. I connect with them. But long ago, in the 1980s, there was a publication, and this publication was a tourist thing for every tourist that came to Australia. And in it, there's a section talking about shopping. And in my youth, when I was a young lad, I was actually selling cycads. I was selling cacti and succulents. And once I was young, God. Anyway, there's a cycad. There's a cycad. And lots of people would come to have a look at the display. I was once a good marketer in markets and stalls all around Melbourne, selling every day of the week plants from all over the world. But cycads were one of the interest areas I had. And if you'll notice, there's a cycad there, there's a cycad there, cycad there. I would sell up to 100 cycads per year. So that was in the 1980s. So that's my history. And there's a postcard, top right, see it again? So it was once a popular activity of mine, marketing and selling. I'm now semi-retired. This is a garden I have with my wife, Michelle, and it's in Narre Warren East. And so happens the management and the staff from the Huntington have been out to this garden twice. One of the things they notice is there are cycads in the garden. I'm not going to focus so much on my cultivating of cycads, but obviously you can see them if you look hard in the screen. Backdrop of other native exotics, beautiful xerophytes, Dorianthus, Palmaris. Anyway, now, before I proceed further, I just want to point out something. My work at cultivating cycads is not minor. I showed that I was marketing cycads in the 1980s, but researching and growing them and promoting them and writing about them has become a bit of an obsession on the side. If you like the presentation to this point, there is a small publication. I've only got a small number left of this publication, but it talks about my talk. So it's basically the program of today's presentation in a booklet, and there's more in the booklet. So if you liked what you've read so far or seen so far, you might like to read that. Now, in summary, I've covered some of the international cycad scene. I've showed some of Australia's most attractive and desirable species with the primary aim of getting audiences interested and excited about them. Now, in any introduction, there's so much I could cover. Ethnobotany, I want to talk about that in great detail, but I'm going to hold most of that off because I don't have the time. I've got restricted time frame now, but I will point out just a little thing to think about. On the right side, the lower arrow points to Australia's most well-known cycad that has ever been utilised as a food source. It's interesting because this central arrow for the Central Australian cycad, it produces the largest seed of any cycad in Australia, and yet the Indigenous people have never used it as a food source. Isn't that interesting? Why not? It's not because there wasn't documentation. They did not use it as a food source, but for another day, perhaps. Now, I haven't touched much on conservation, but conservation is all about collaborations. Conservation through cultivation. What could that mean? Well, tissue culture is a frontier, and I know it's been touched on before, but not as well as it could or should be. I now introduce, I'm trying to frame all this, my whole presentation, but Kelly Griffin. Kelly Griffin is a name some of you might be aware of. He's internationally renowned for breeding and developing and cultivating rare plants from habitat and bringing them to the world market through tissue culture. He's traveled to more habitats than most people in the world. Hello, Kelly. Kelly Griffin, he's brought plants back that are so rare and he's mass produced them through tissue culture, and then nurseries distribute them widely. And his plants are some of the most world-renowned you'll ever come across. Now, that's a picture by Kelly of Lauren Whitelock. Lauren Whitelock not only was a world-renowned expert in cycads, he happened to love succulents. There's Lauren. And notice in the background, focus on the fact that there's an agave, green, 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 green. This one's blue. Oh. But that's Kelly's picture of Lauren Whitelock. They've traveled together to habitats, many habitats. So Kelly is not only instrumental in bringing plants into the market through tissue culture, he also is a cycad expert and has seen and visited most cycads in habitat. And this is a picture of a cycad with cacti growing on them. I found this really, really fascinating. So thank you, Kelly. Now, Kelly's been to Australia many times, and he's also visited many cycad habitats in Australia. And he can also appreciate the potential to introduce some of these Australian native plants through the industry via tissue culture. There's Kelly, bottom right, in Central Australia. These pictures you're looking at now were taken only weeks ago. So, you know, he does get around and he doesn't just occasionally, look at me, Kelly, there, thank you. He found this cycad to be one of the finest in the world. And he's seen most cycads in habitat, whether it's Africa, Madagascar, Mexico. Now, enough on my marketing and promoting. Oh, look, I'm going to stop there. What's my time, George? Have you got a bearing with my time?
37 minutes. So we'll do some questions when you wrap up. and that'll take us through till about 10 to.
All right. Well, I can chat some more, but I'm not going to go any further because it takes another 10, 15 minutes. So no, I won't go any further. But if you've liked the program to this point, oh, look, this is the tip of the iceberg. Australian native cycads are really exciting. And honestly, the potential for Australians and the world to appreciate, enjoy, and grow these rare plants in terms of conservation, if they could be more readily available through the horticultural industry, then there'll be less pressure on some of these rarer species from extinction because some of them are in restricted habitats, some of them have low population numbers, and also to the black market trade in habitat collected plants is pretty serious. In fact, it is a problem. So, addressing some of these things, the horticulture industry can potentially play a role and profit from it as well without interfering or damaging habitats any further. George, I think I should wrap it on that. But if there are any questions, please, let's go for it.
Well,
Attila, can I ask one?
Sorry?
Can I ask a question?
yeah, Neville.
Yes. Neville.
Okay. Yeah, it's Neville. I understand that there is a symbiotic relationship between some cycads and blue-green algae. Would you like to comment on that?
Well, the complexity of cycad study is that still to this day, they've only just in recent years fully appreciated that it's not pollen that moves from one plant to the other via wind. It's rather insects. And when people say insects, specifically, they've found that thrips are a major, and in many cases, an individual species of thrip for each species, totally dependent. So that's very specific. And there are also beetles. That's a little bit more well known. And now when you talk about algae and mycorrhizal, well, the relationship between the benefits of, how would I say, it's an area I'm not an expert on. So I'll be honest with you, Neville, I should not go into that because that's more complex than this presentation really. I tried to touch on things cursorily, not
Yep.
go into any detail.
No, it just fascinated me. We had some early Dutch explorers that ate fruit from our Macrozemia reedlii and nearly perished. And they finished up with the staggers. So they'd sort of lost a lot of muscle use. And my understanding is that that is traced back to the blue-green algae that form or that live in the specialized roots of this macrozemia. And it was similar to motor neuron disease type outcomes. So there seems to be some important relationship there between the algae producing food for the plant and the plant giving the algae a spot to live. But very primitive,
I'm not aware
very interesting.
I'm not aware of that aspect, but I am aware that the chemical analysis of most cycads has shown that there are alkaloids and lots of toxins that are problematic if ingested in a raw state.
Yep.
Toxic. So it's fairly common knowledge that cycads are poisonous. They should be left alone. And the indigenous people leached or washed out or crushed or, over a long period of time, especially leaching, a lot of the toxins are washed out.
Yep.
But it's not something I'd recommend anyone trying.
Think of all the people that must have died before they found out how long they had to leach them for.
Yeah.
Now, Helen had a question that she sent through in the chat early in the piece. Oh, Helen, you're there. So
yes, and I do have another question actually. Yes, I was just wondering when you're going through cycas strongii, if the leaves on that were spiny, like on cycas revoluta, they didn't look quite as spiny.
They're not as spiny. They're much softer. In fact, very fern-like soft. But it's interesting. After a fire, new growth, lush growth is the most vibrant lime green. Over a period of 6 to 12 months, the leaves become more firm, more rigid, more spinescent, but not as spiny as Cycas revoluta. And also, too, the petiole, the base of the leaf, is the most spinescent, and the frond, the main parts with all the pinnae and that, is the least spinescent. So there you are. Hope that answers your question.
Do we have any herbivores that eat that fresh foliage, or is it toxic universally?
Yeah, there are in
You don't have
particular
gym?
there are some
When you go to
butterflies,
gym?
butterfly larvae that actually eat
No, I'd have
cycad
enough.
foliage,
Since I've
and
got
also little beetles
give me
too.
another 10 minutes.
So
Bernard,
yeah, we
your
do have.
microphone's on.
I'm sorry.
I said, Bernard, your microphone is on.
Oh, sorry. Everyone was offering me cherries, and I said I can wait. Sorry. Apologize, Attila.
It's okay. All right. Any more questions?
Oh, yes. Well, I actually have another one if I can be greedy. So your colleague was out recently and looking at some of those spectacular cycads that we have. What kind of path can he take to get them from the wild into cultivation?
There, quite specifically, government licenses can be obtained to access any plant, but it has to be a worthwhile exercise that's proven to be of benefit to either the species or potentially conservation, or there's a range of reasons. I have got in the past government licenses to collect prohibited plants. All cycads are protected by federal law, so there's actually some kind of hurdle, but it's not insurmountable.
And presumably there needs to be people like you to do that, to preserve some of these species.
Oh, I think if I had time, I have an extended section to this presentation about the comparison between cycads being prehistoric and the Willamite pine. The Willamite pine is also just as historic. The Willamite pine is just as rare, if not which is rarer. There are some cycads that are just as rare. Now, it's interesting that the Willamite pine got government funding and priority conservation treatment, with tissue culture distributing it around the world as a marketing success story. Why can we not apply the same to some of our best cycads? The potential here is extraordinary. But really, it's the will of the people and the government backing. It's a teamwork of, well, look, Willamite pine was an international, it's the most acclaimed example of a plant getting worldwide distribution and promotion and conservation as a result. And the study from all the plants sent around the world, information goes back to the government on where and how best the plant grows, Willamite pines, what the tolerances are. For example, will it grow in Canada? Will it grow in Tasmania? Will it grow outside? All these things are so interesting. You know, citizen science has contributed immeasurably to Willamite pine conservation. Now, that needs to be now applied to cycads. It's a small, very small step to apply the same techniques, the same system, the same avenues, the same financing onto these cycads, and we'll make cycads famous. The Willamite pine is famous, and our cycads need promotion.
Attila, there is a fabulous cycad which you've shown today. I think it's Armstrong Eye that grows up in the Kakadu area. Don Wilson, who was kind of the first television presenter in Western Australia, had them growing in his glass house. It's such a gorgeous plant. Dying to get it out into gardens. Is your man with the tissue culture doing any work on that variety?
Kelly Griffin has introduced more plants to the horticultural trade than anyone alive today. Through tissue culture, he not only has rare plants in the raw state, so pure species, which is distributed widely, but also to hybrids, cultivars, selections. Now, I'm talking about the list could be up to 100 different plants, whether it's palms or gasterias or aloes or agaves or echeverias. Now, he hasn't done work on cycads, but he has cycads, Australian cycads, in his garden in San Diego. So he's not unfamiliar with cycads, both in habitat or in cultivation, and he needs to be prompted, helped, or financed. But he has the avenues, he has the channels, he has the potential. He himself, he has a private tissue culture lab. He also has and works in a lab for a company called Altman Plants. Altman Plants is a huge company. I'm talking, it's the largest nursery in America. I think it's that big. It's really big. And introducing tissue culture plants to the world is their priority. So they've got a real big, the potential is there, but really, honestly, the comparison with the Willamette pine is just so interesting. All you have to do is look at the success of the Willamette pine and think, this is so easy. This is just, oh, goodness. Anyway, enough from me on that. Any more questions? I get too excited. I'm sorry.
Any more questions?
Well, I mean, I could ask questions all day. I'm interested, there's quite a lot of myths go on about transplanting cycads.
No
How
problem.
readily do you think they transplant?
It's not as difficult as a xanthorrhea. So black boys or xanthorrheas are far more difficult. Having cycads transplant very comfortably, easily. Not a problem.
Is there, you have to get all of the cordex intact?
All the cortex needs to be intact, of course. You can't take a cutting off the branch. No, that's not. No, but if the cortex is dug.
If some of the cordex on really big ones, if you only got some of the cordex out, would it survive?
All the cortex has to come and some roots.
Okay.
But I have grown many cycads. The ones that you saw me selling at Victoria Market were all salvage plants from residential developments in the New South Wales East Coast. They were dug out and the roots were removed. All the roots were removed and the plants recovered.
Okay, great. I
Also,
love your
too,
presentation. Thank you, Attila. I adore your enthusiasm.
Yes.
No, Attila, there's been seemingly, I think, because of that popularity of this Cycas revoluta, we seem to have had a lot more problems now with the cycad butterfly.
Oh, yes, that's a little tiny little blue thing, is it? Yes, it is. I think it is.
It's an Australian native, I believe.
Yes.
Is that right? Yes.
It's a problem in Queensland. I don't know if it's not a problem in Melbourne. Do you have it in Sydney? Do you?
Not so much. I think it's in the warmer places, but
Yes.
yeah, but it does attack the new growth, and it's just interesting. It's when a population of plant gets to a certain level, then of course the pests.
Oh, that's true. Like anything, if you have a massive one, monoculture, it does happen that scale insect or the whole gamut, and the more comfortable the environment is for your plant, the more comfortable it is for insects to proliferate.
Yeah, so they just spread from one to the other, and that's sort of, I think that's kind of reduced the popularity of the cycad.
Cycads don't have many pest problems. They don't suffer from snails or slugs. They don't suffer much from mealybug. When you talk about the butterfly, if you use Derris dust, which is tomato dust, it kills butterflies quick, smart, and the caterpillar also. So only when there's new growth, I sprinkle some Derris dust on the new growth. And look, you only have to do that once or twice. It's only while the new growth is coming up and establishing. And if it rains every day, I'll have to powder every second day. But look, if I powder once a week for the first 3 weeks, that'll cover it. You do that to your tomatoes.
Yeah. Attila, I was going to ask about frizzletop. I mean, is that just the revoluta, or are Australian cycads also affected by that?
Can you explain that again, please?
Frizzletop. Apparently, plants can get this problem with their leaves, and it's when they're short of manganese. Manganese, it is. And so
I'm not confident to be able to discuss that with any understanding of how to help you. I'm sorry. I know the problem you're talking about. Sorry?
It's really common in Sydney.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's. I actually went. It was at New South, the Art Gallery of New South Wales, and they had some beautiful specimens. They were revoluta, but they were very badly affected because they obviously hadn't been feeding. It's obviously manganese is only a fairly minor thing, but if you
I've got an idea, Bernard, that it's related to high phosphorus levels in the soil, which then makes the manganese unavailable.
well, in my experience, when I've actually given the plant like a general feed, I cut off the leaves that affected. It seems that they seem to come on. But I just wanted to. So I'm just Attila sort of maybe that the native ones
don't have. I certainly don't have that problem here in Melbourne.
Oh, lucky you.
But you've got real soil over there.
Oh, good soil.
Well, I'm on the foothills of the Dandenongs, and it's not comparable. We've got coastal sandy soils, we've got a whole range, but I've got clay soils where I am, and I've got no problem with Cycas revoluta.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I've got a question.
I'll look into what Helen said about the high phosphorus. That's good. That's an interesting thing too. Okay, good. Thanks.
I had a question, Attila. I heard years ago about a woman who I think she was a scientist, and she spent her whole life working on the south coast and with the macrozamias. And she was pricked so many times by those leaves that the poisons built up in her system.
Oh.
And so have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't.
No,
I haven't heard of that.
It's probably not true, but
sometimes stories are funny because I have a lot of agaves in the garden, and these agaves, agave americana, a whole range of agaves, and they often flower, and they're huge plants, and I often use chainsaw and various tools to cut them down, cut them back, and so forth. And first time in my life, only just last month, I used the chainsaw while wearing a pair of shorts. The plant splattered with the chainsaw sap on me, and I've had sap on me, agave sap on me all my life, and never a reaction. Occasionally an itch, occasionally a bit of a rash. But I'll tell you what, a month ago, I had so much on me, I don't know if it was an overload. I don't know if it was a sudden reaction. I don't know if it was a hot day, but I was almost poisoned by it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I've got photographs of hundreds of welt marks and blisters on my body all over.
Wow.
Well, some of those toxins do build up with exposure, like the rust tree does too.
The more exposure
you're exposed to it, the more sensitive you get to it.
Maybe the lady on the south coast. It's a true story, but probably no. Any other questions?
Well, plenty, but
well, look, if you've got 5-10 minutes, I'll give you a short story. I'll go quick, can I?
Yeah.
Can you look at the screen? Do you have my screen? Can you see that picture? Welcome to Cooktown.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is just an aside, but it relates to cycads. I went there looking for cycads, and this happens to be a map, and on the map it shows the words Botanic Gardens. That's Cooktown Botanic Gardens. There's a bay, Finch Bay, Coral Sea. Anyway, there's a track, and it says from the Botanical Gardens, you can walk down to the beach, walk down to the toilets, and walk back into town for a coffee. Michelle and I, morning walk, we decided that we're going to do that, through the Botanical Gardens, down to the beach, back into town. Well, when we got to Cooktown, if you know where Cooktown is, I'm sorry, Cooktown's right up here in the top north of Cairns, and that's the view from the Botanical Gardens, looking down towards the beach, and there's a toilet down there. We had to walk through the scrub, and it so happens we're exploring for cycads. Now, this hillside I'm standing on has a cycad intermedia, and this mountain opposite Mount Cook has the Bowenia. So two different genera, two different families. This is right opposite each other. I thought this is going to be fun. So we're exploring these habitats. It was a habitat explore for cycads. There I am. Michelle took the picture. And there's Michelle. The reason she's up on the rock is we've lost sight of the track. That track down has been let go and the forest has grown over, and it was so difficult we couldn't see our way. We couldn't find our way in boulders and rocks and cycads, but on the rock right here, right in the foreground, see there's a marker. It says, oh, go that way. Well, we can't even tell which way. The marker's worn off. But we could see the beach in the distance, so we headed in that general direction. We eventually got down to the beach. There's an old shack and a toilet. We got to the beach, and it took us a good half hour, an hour to get down there. It was a bit of a bush bash. But then we have to make our way back, and we're going to decide how to get to Cairns. So we're looking around anyway. Bowenia up there on the hillside. Now we're going to find our way back. And just before we make it back, that's the end where we walked to. We walked along the beach and found our way up. But before we could, at a certain point, we couldn't find our track into the scrub. There's scrub here. We couldn't find a track through. And while looking around, suddenly I found, behind some bushes, I found some scrunched up paper, and I couldn't understand, and I opened it up and it was actually a map. It was that map that you saw. It was a scrunched up map. Anyway, the map showed us where along the beach there's actually a little track, and there's a broken old sign there. We found a track that led us up to the top of the hill and across into town. So I've made it through and it was a hot day. Oh, it was so hot. After we're getting through there's the map. See the map next to Michelle's bag and hand? See that map there on the left? Well, I'm in the shade because it was a 30, 35 degree day, and climbing up that hill, it was taxing. Anyway, there's the map there, and there's the map. The map's important. On the way down into town, stop, and there's mangoes falling from the tree. I sat to eat a mango on the side of the road. Wasn't it serendipitous that there was a map that helped us get out and through the forest? Because, serendipity, the mango, we're having a really good day. Anyway, there's the map, there's the mango. That map's dirty, but it was scrunched up. We get to a cafe by this, and we're eating lunch. And while we're eating lunch, Michelle's got the map in her hand, and she says, I wonder why anyone would dispose of a map behind the bushes on the beach. She said, I wonder if they used it to go to the toilet.
Oh, dear.
I said, Michelle, I'm eating my lunch.
Oh, not a good.
That was a cycad explorer. It was a cycad adventure. It was so much fun. But let me tell you, the most memorable part was the tragic part, getting lost, finding a map, and then being told at lunch that paper was probably someone wiping their backside or their front side and leaving it there. That's why they dumped it. That's why it was scrunched up behind the bushes. Oh, my God, Michelle, you didn't have to tell me that. Anyway.
Oh, right. I think on that note,
fell out of their pocket when they.
Hello, Jackie.
Hello.
hi, Jack. So on that note, I think we will thank the gentleman for this fascinating talk. Yes, we all need another 10 lifetimes now, Attila, to grow all those plants, especially if you're growing them from tissue culture. But yeah, we agree. They should be better known. They should be better grown. And I admire your work, and let's hope we can do a bit more to promote them. So talk to me and I can help you promote them. So
Thank you, Judy.
everyone say thank you to
Yes.
Attila. He's always entertaining.
Thank you, Attila.
Fabulous, Attila. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, everyone.
Right.
Good night. Oh, good afternoon. Sorry. I'll get off.
Good
Bye-bye.
afternoon.
Good morning.
Bye-bye. Thanks,
Oh, good
Attila.
morning. Yes.
And thank